What's going on, guys? I'm tired. I just finished a 4-hour game, and I gotta say, 1700s aren't how I remember them. They're very good. They're very good players. So, yeah, before we get into the game, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I forgot to say that earlier today, but hope you guys got to spend some time with your family. And I didn't because I was playing chess, but I will on Sunday. That's why I'm taking the bye. So, looking forward to that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into this game. I was black, and of course we had d4. So I spent like a few minutes even at this point in the game just like thinking, what do I want to play? I didn't really feel like Benko was awesome last time, and so I'm like, let's do something else. Let's try to mix it up a little bit. And so I played f5. This is the Dutch, and it's a different way of controlling the e4 square. Instead of a knight or the d5 pawn, you use this f pawn, and so it can lead to some pretty interesting positions because you're right away kind of opening up your king. So I'm like, let's do it. I don't really know a lot of theory, but I figured maybe that he wouldn't either. So bishop g5. Now I think I can still play knight f6. I'm not sure, like, after they take, which way I'm even supposed to take and what kind of positions. I really don't know much about that. So I knew that h6, g5, and then not f4, because we can't actually trap the bishop. Even though it looks like the Noah's Ark trap, if I play this, I'm the one getting trapped, because now e3, and when I take the bishop, this queen comes over here, and the game is just over. Checkmate, right? So that's a little... I knew this trap, and so you can't play f4. So the point behind doing this is just to kind of gain some space on the king side, not to trap the bishop. So I did that. Then I just played knight f6, controlling this square. This is one of the things when you play the Dutch, you really have to watch out for this diagonal. So, okay, e3, and then we just kind of did some developing moves. I'm going to go quickly through these because there's a lot of other things to look at. And queen e7. So right here, I thought quite a bit because I'm not sure what he's planning. Like, it looks like he wants to play e4. It looks like he might castle, but then he might also play like queen d2 and castle queenside. But I'm like, I'm not sure where I want my king to go either. I don't really want to castle here just yet, because then something like h4 looks pretty scary, and the rook's going to come and, I might get checkmated. So I was thinking bishop d7, I was thinking queen e7, I was thinking b6. And I decided, you know what, queen e7 is probably like a really likely move that I'm going to play pretty much regardless. So I went ahead and started with that, and I wanted to see what he was going to do. So he goes for e4. And now I decided to take it because I was thinking that if he takes back with a pawn, I could hop my knight over here with a threat to come into e6 and fork these guys, and then also a threat to take this pawn. It looked pretty good to me. Now Stockfish seems to think that queen d2, just sacrificing the pawn, works for him nicely. I didn't see that, so I thought this was a good plan. I think he thought the same thing, so he actually took with the bishop. And so I was like, okay, let's go ahead and get the bishop pair and consider that, a small victory. And then bishop d7, bishop f2, and I decided to castle long. Seemed like a pretty safe place for my king, and queen to d2. And I'm like, okay, I still don't know what he's doing, right? I don't know which way he's going. He could go either way. And so I didn't want to commit to, like, for example, if I put my rook over here and then he castles this way, it's kind of like, I don't know what my rooks are really doing here. And then if I put this rook, like, let's say in the center, and then he castles over here, I'm like, well, maybe I would have wanted this rook over here then. So I'm like, let's just play king b8. This is a useful move. A lot of times when you castle queenside to defend this pawn and sometimes like get out of this diagonal from checks. In this case, this doesn't really matter. But still, I thought, okay, it's a useful move. So king b8. And then he goes b4, and I'm like, wow, the guy is aggressive, and he just wants to checkmate me. That's what he wants to do. So I played d5. Normally, when you're getting attacked on the flank, like I am, this is a flank attack on my king, the natural response is to counterattack in the center. And so I didn't even really think too much. I just played d5 and then e5. And I knew that the knight was going to get a nice little hole here, but I figured at any point I can really kick it away with b6 when I need to, and I have this light squared bishop. I could probably drop back, and I'm just trying to open up this diagonal, open up this on the king before he has time to like keep attacking me. Okay. And one more important thing to note here. This is actually a threat, and my knight doesn't have a lot of places to go, right? Like, all of these squares are taken, so my knight's sort of trapped. The queen covers here. This is covered, but I did have this square. So that's another reason why I needed to play e5 so that I could take on d4 if he decided to push this pawn. Okay, so that's an important thing. He castled, and then I went bishop c8. I was like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and keep my bishop, right? It's covering everything that the knight is trying to do. And, you know, again, if b5, I still have this knight takes d4. So I wasn't worried about that. So he plays c3. Now, knight takes d4 is no longer an option, but on b5, now I have knight a5. Remember before the queen was covering that square? Now it's not. So b5, I'm just going to play, sorry, b5, I'm just going to play knight a5, and then hop over to c4. That looks pretty good. So I wasn't really worried about his attack at this point, because apart from this, I'm like, I don't know what else he's going to do. I mean, yeah, there's a4, but that's kind of slow. And I was like, I think now's the time for me to start attacking his king. So I played h5, a4, and then I went g4. Again, I'm still not really worried here because, you know, if he plays this, I have knight a5 and everything's kind of blockaded. It's hard for him to do anything. And then the other plan, something like a5 seems a little bit slow because I'm going to capture here right away. And guess what? The king is getting open real quick. So I think my attack was going to be faster, right? And he, I think, realized the same thing and decided to play a little bit of defense here and played f4. And the engine actually likes pushing by. Now, I didn't want to play this move because I have the bishop pair. And if I lock up the position, I didn't feel like my bishops were going to be as effective, right? Like, what is this bishop doing now? What is this bishop doing? Maybe I can still do something here, like push this, and if he pushes, like sack the bishop and make something happen, but it didn't look very clear to me. Now, like I said, engine seems to really like it, but I didn't see that. So the other thing that was happening at this point in the game, the guy's about to like run out of time. Like let me check. I think he has like a few minutes left here. Let's see. F4. Okay, so he had 14 minutes left, and we're only on move 20, which means we've got to make 20 more moves before we reach the time control where we get extra time. And he only has 14 minutes, so that's less than a minute, you know, per move. So I'm like, okay, he's running out of time. He's been thinking a lot. He's playing really well, though. So I'm like, let me see if I can do something to kind of mix it up. And I saw this line. So I'm like, okay, let's take the pawn. The queen can't take because the knight is hanging. So the knight will have to take. Okay. And then I was planning this. So I played this right away. Bishop h6, pinning the knight. Okay. I figured he would play bishop e3, and he does because he's trying to break the pin and also defend the knight. So I'm like, okay, I played this right away, lining up on the bishop. Now at this point he has, let's see, okay, he's playing pretty quick here, so he's down to like 12 minutes. Okay, yeah, it comes later. I'll tell you the part I'm thinking about later. It's a little bit later in the game. Anyway, sorry. So I play here, I'm attacking the bishop. Sorry. So he defends it with the rook, and then I played here. Now, way back earlier here, when I decided to take this pawn, I saw this position, and I thought that after this move, rook here, I had a nice little trick if he took on d5. This is what I thought back in that position. I thought, he's going to take me. I'm going to take here, check. He can't take with the rook because then this bishop is not defended enough, and I'm just going to take it. And he takes, I take, and I win a piece, right? So he has to take with the king. And then I thought I had this clever little move, queen here, check, and I'm forking the knight, and the king and the knight. So, okay, he's going to go back to block. And then, bam, rook takes e3, and regardless of how he takes, let's say queen takes, I'm going to take this with my bishop, and now I have the two pieces, or actually the two bishops for the rook, which is good. This is really good for me. I was pretty comfortable that if I got this, I was going to be able to win, and that would have been fine. So that was what I was planning. The problem with this move is that he has another move. And if you want to pause for a second and figure it out, what do you think white played in this position? Top engine move, and of course he found it. The guy was really, really sharp. He was on it this game. Like, he was playing really well. All right, well, the move was king to g1. And the idea is that you just leave the knight because at the end of that, there's a bishop over here. So if I take the knight, he's going to take my bishop. And I didn't see really anything else to do. If I take this first, well, then the knight retreats with capture, and I'm just down that pawn. I just lost my d pawn, and white's better, right? So I was like, okay. Now, at this point, when he took with his king, he has, let's see. Sorry, when he played king g1, he had 9 minutes left. So I'm like, okay, he's still pretty low on time. We're only on move 26. We got quite a few moves to go. So I'm like, let me do this. Let me trade this because it looked like it was going to be a pretty tricky position. And I played b6. And at this moment, I'm like feeling pretty good. I'm like, okay, b6. As soon as the knight moves, I don't really care where it goes. Probably here, maybe here. I'm going to put my bishop on b7. And I'm going to have this battery, right? So for example, let's say knight here. I'm going to go bishop b7. And I'm going to have this really nice battery. And I'm going to move my knight somewhere. And I'm going to have a checkmate threat. And this looks pretty dangerous for white. Okay, pretty dangerous. And even if like he checks me, I can just block with my knight. It's defended. And I've got this thing happening. I felt pretty good about that. Now, engine is telling me that after knight f4, I'm just losing for some reason. I'm not sure what that's all about. What if I just go here? Oh, bishop g5, and then he's forcing the trade. Okay, I didn't see that. I did not see that. Thought I had a good position. Anyway, that was my plan. Okay, b6. And then the dude has like 8 minutes left, and boom, he hits me with this move, queen e4. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, queen e4? Because the idea is if I take the knight, I'm losing my queen. And if I take the queen, well, he just traded queens. Now he's in an endgame up a pawn, and I'm probably going to lose or maybe hang on for a draw. I'm like, okay, so what can I do? Well, the other thing about this is now my knight's hanging if my queen like ventures too far away. Like if I do something like this, I'm going to lose my knight. I'm like, okay, I got to go queen d6 to defend the knight. Boom, he hits me with bishop f4. And I'm like, okay, now I got to move my queen somewhere else. Where can I even move it to? I got to keep defending the knight. Only place is here. All right, queen f6. And then he goes back to b3. And at this point, let's see here. He's down to 5 minutes. Okay, so 5 minutes, and we're only on move 31. So we got to make 9 more moves. He's got 5 minutes left, and I have plenty of time. I have like 15 minutes left or something. So I'm like trying to think, how can I make it tricky? And so I played bishop b7 again, going for this, thing here. All right, cool. So knight goes back, knight here, and now check this out, guys. Check this out. I was thinking when I played here that if he goes queen e5 to try to trade queens, that I have this move queen c6, threatening checkmate. And then I realized he can play knight to e4, and I can't take this knight because if I take it, check this out, checkmate, out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my goodness. So now engine is telling me knight g6, which I did not see in the game, is actually good for me. So anyway, I was actually afraid of queen e5, but he played bishop e5, which actually is the top engine move. So he played the best move, even though it wasn't what I was afraid of. And again, there's this like queen trade shenanigans happening. If I take the queen, he takes here, but now I have 2 pieces hanging. They're both hanging, and I'm just losing a piece. Okay, so I can't do that. I'm like, well, let's go here. I wanted to stay on the white squares because when this queen moves, or if the queen ever moves, I wanted to play like queen d5 at some point and get this battery going and attack. Remember, opposite colored bishops can be very dangerous for the attacking side, right? So that's what I was thinking. He plays queen e2, and let's see at this point. Yeah, so I'm looking at my sheet. I have 0. His time was 0. He literally thought down to like 3 seconds on each of these next. Let's see, how many moves do we have? There's like 6 more moves, and each one of them, he had no time. He literally was playing on increment. So every move, you get 30 seconds added. He would think for 30 seconds and then move. So he plays queen e2, and I'm trying to like keep it together. Like, okay, I got to play good moves. I can't just try to win on time, right? Because he could keep playing on increment. He's obviously capable of playing good moves. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do here? Let's think about this. I played knight to d5. I'm like, it looks like a tricky move. My knight has potential to do quite a few things. And, later I can sort of rebuild the battery. So, okay, knight there. He plays knight e4. Yeah, one of the top engine moves. I played queen f5. Again, I'm trying to keep it tricky because I know he's got to play quickly. He doesn't have time to think. And then finally, he makes like a slight error. h3 was not the best move. So I took it because I could see that, like, okay, this is opening up the king. This looks pretty good. And again, remember, he's got like 30 seconds for each of these moves, so he's not thinking of it very much. He plays knight g3 with like 2 seconds on the clock, right as he's about to run out of time. And that was finally like a mistake. Now, I had, 4 minutes. So I have 4 minutes to make like 1, 2, 3, 4 more moves. Okay, so I'm just like not sure what to do here either. And I almost threw the game away by taking here. because I was like, ooh, this is a good tactic. I'm going to take this. He's going to take my queen. I'm going to take here with check. He's going to move his king somewhere. And then I'm going to take here. And I'm going to go get a queen. And it's defended by my bishop. He can't take my knight because of this. I have 2 extra pawns over here. This looks good. That's what I was thinking, okay? And I almost played it. Like, I was literally about to play it. And then I was like, hold on a second. What if he doesn't take the queen? Sorry, that's what I played in the game. I was like, what if he doesn't take the queen? What if he goes here, check? And then I'm like, okay, I'll take it. And then if he goes here, I can block with the queen. Everything's good. But he's got this move. Boom. He's forking these. And more importantly, my queen is hanging. And I got to get that check, and I can't save the queen. I lose my queen. Game over. So I almost fell for that, okay? But then I realized what was happening. And I'm like, nope, I can't do that. I got to go with queen b1. He goes here. Again, he has like no time. I think that was his, that was 38. Okay, so I took it, he took it, and then I played knight check. And then this was time control. So he played, yeah, I think, no, yeah, king f2. As soon as he plays king f2, he gets his time. Now he gets 30 extra minutes, and he can breathe. Now, I had to still consider what was happening here, because I'm like, it almost looks like h2 is a good move. But then I was like, wait a second, can I actually get away with this? Oh no, my knight taking, sorry, not this position. I played check, he played here. Now I was considering h2 check, but I wasn't sure. And now I actually had time. So I was thinking, and I finally found a nice move. If you want to pause and figure out what do you think the best move for black is, there's one cool move, and that's what I played. All right, well, if you said h4, you are correct. So the idea here is that we want to kick the knight away before we do something else with our pawn or our knight or something, because otherwise this pawn is going to be probably captured, right? So by playing h4, we're kicking the knight away, and then after the knight moves somewhere, now I was planning on playing check, forcing like the king over, and then playing h3. Now that I'm looking at it, though, that actually I don't even know if I could play that, so I'd probably have to just take. Anyway, I wanted to basically kick the knight away, then trade, and then my pawn's not hanging. So that was the idea. He didn't see the other part of that, is that he can't take here because now I just take the bishop, and he's losing a piece, right? So we get this position. This is a one end game. Basically, his king is stuck because of the pawn and the bishop. And so all I have to do is bring my king over here, take this pawn, and then I'm going to win. And so that's what happened. I have to use the bishop to stop the pawn. He trades it, but then my king comes in, and I just come over here. And one thing here, you do not want to trade these pawns, because if I trade like a couple of pawns and I only leave myself one pawn, if he gets his king in the corner, this is the drawn endgame because it's the wrong color bishop, right? It doesn't match the square. So you want to keep the pawns on the board for sure. So I did that. And then this move is actually zugzwang, or zugzwang. So he can't defend the pawn. Has to move away, take the pawns, and then there we go. He resigned finally. So rough game. I mean, I don't know. The guy played really, really well. Like, he found some nice moves. Yeah, I mean, a lot of credit to him. Like, if he didn't get low on time at the end there and make those couple of mistakes, I don't know that I would have won that game. So I think, you know, the opening choice was fine. I apologize for the sound. I'll have to turn that off for the next recap if I don't keep forgetting. But I felt like the opening was okay. I mean, I got into a decent position. I would like to study this a little bit more and figure out what to do. Like, what's the idea? Because I really didn't know what the major ideas were here. But anyway, rough game. We got 2 out of 3 points now, though. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. And like I said, happy Thanksgiving. Stay sharp, play smart, take care.